podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Tricky Talks podcast. As Forest returned from their trip to Austria with a point, we'll talk about that and look forward to game week 11 of the Premier League and a match against Leeds United. Here with me this week is Chelsea. How you doing?
Hey, yes, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, you missed a great FPL update earlier in the week, Chelsea, when Mollo was waxing lyrical about his 72 points, but I happened to chip in there with 94.
94? God,
Nearly. And Kate is here, back from Austria. How are you doing? Are you recovered? Or you just got in, haven't you?
I've literally just got home, yeah. So I'm still going on adrenaline. It feels like I've been on the go since 3 a.m. on Thursday morning, but I think technically I did sleep at some point, so...
Yeah, if you can be on the go for at least another half an hour for this recording, that would be much appreciated, I think.
Nod off, just tap the laptop.
Mollo hasn't recovered from his trip to Austria. I suspect he's probably had too much beer, so he's not joining us this week. Mollo
sober as a judge when I saw him.
Yeah, so he'll be back next week, I'm sure. So let's start off with that trip to Austria, Kate. I'm sure you've got plenty to talk about in terms of your travel and the pre-match build-up and the atmosphere. So we'll hand over to you to kick off then, shall we?
Wow, I don't know where to start. It's been such an incredible 36 hours, however long it's been. As we were turning onto the driveway, I just kind of cast a little look to my left, to my boy, to my left, to my right, to my boy, and said, I've been driving on both sides of the road today, sorry, and just said, wow, what an adventure. And he was like, mm-hmm. And that's really what it was from start to finish. You know, we left in the middle of the night, drove down to Stansted, got there, and who should be in the queue to get on the plane but Mr. Mollo himself. So it was like, how did we not know? We were on the same flight, but that was great. So chatting to him on the tarmac, and then got into the seat, and Des Oldham, who some of you probably know of, who does some stuff on Ben's show and on X and all that, turned out to be my other seatmate for the journey. So that was brilliant. So shout out to Des, and yeah, we just sort of kind of talked Forest all the way there, and that was super fun. So it was like a mega fun flight, and then it was straight in to pick up the tickets, which I did have a tiny little beef with Forest for that, because it was the most inaccessible hotel I think in the whole of Austria to get to. It was one of those ones where you feel like you're driving past it and then round again and past it and round again, and then but eventually we got the tickets, and they were proper tickets, which I know is it's a novelty these days, isn't it? To have like a proper ticket, and it's got, I wish I had it in my hand now, and it's got like the UEFA logo on it and everything. And so it's like a proper souvenir ticket. So that was a thrill. Then went to check into the accommodation. Turned out we were staying above a boxing gym, which unexpected, but you know, why not? And just actually the little bit of Graz that we saw was absolutely beautiful. You know, the drive from the airport, all the mountains, and like every time you turned a new corner, you were like, oh, amazing. And then this beautiful European sparkly city as you walked over the bridge, and you could just sort of hear the noise in the distance of the Forest fans, and you were like, I don't think we need Google Maps for this, let's just follow that noise. So over the bridge, and it's getting louder and louder and louder, and then boom, there they all were singing their absolute hearts out outside this Irish bar in Graz. And they were amazing. The staff in the Irish bar, absolutely well done to them. I bet their feet didn't touch the ground either. But just straight into the atmosphere. I think we put some clips on of Mollo stood up on a window ledge, I think it was, hanging onto a flag. So he beat me there and was having a great time. Saw some of the Garibaldi girls there. had some pictures, sang some songs. And then it was free transport from the fan zone to the stadium. So by way of tram on the way there and bus on the way back, which again, I have to say, just the polar opposite to Betis, where we were literally frog marched for miles by armed police. And yet in this lovely little Austrian town, they're like announcing over I don't know what, for all to hear, Nottingham fans, come to the tram, get the number 4, it takes you where you need to go, it's free. How lovely is that? So off we trotted onto this tram, got to the stadium, and it is a smaller ground, but great views. Again, no issues going into the ground. Everybody welcome. No trouble. They're not sitting us down. They're not holding us back. They're not, when I think back to that in Betis, again, the armed police stood in front of you. What are you watching the game? Absolutely none of that. And gotta give the Graz fans some kudos for their singing, because they were loud and proud. And even though there were, I don't know how many there were, it was about 1,500, I think.
1,349 I saw somewhere written down.
Wow.
We can still make a noise, and we did, but they were also, singing, waving flags, and they did the banner. And I think I've read since that it was something to do with marking an anniversary of when they last played us and wearing vintage shirts. So they were like super proud to be there and playing Nottingham Forest again, which is lovely for us as Forest fans. I didn't see any trouble or at any point feel intimidated or, and I know that isn't true of everybody, and I have read some of the other stuff that went on, and I did catch a little glimpse of some of it, but my experience and my boys' experience was nothing but positive. We get onto the nuts and bolts of the game, but as a travelling fan going to Austria to watch a football game, I just want to say thank you very much to Graz and co.
Just want to pick up on a couple of things you said. Was Mollo was stood on a window ledge with a flag, but it wasn't any old flag, was it?
It was not any old flag, no. It was the Tricky Talks flag. And
it was.
Yeah, waving that around and singing, and it made it into the ground past security. Which
I didn't see it. I didn't see it in the ground, actually. I was looking for it on the TV, and Danny thought he saw it right behind the goal. And I took a photo, and it wasn't that. It was an Austrian one. So I don't know where it ended up in the ground. I never saw it.
He didn't sit with me. He was. I only know this. I didn't see him in the ground. I saw him loads in the airport, but I think he was quite a few rows in front of me. But as far as I'm aware, he got the flag in, and I assumed he'd kind of hung it up maybe near the Garibaldi Girls one, but maybe I
didn't see it on TV anyway. But then we didn't get too many views of the Forest fans on TV anyway, given the fact they were in the corner. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the plane ride over. I remember when you went to Betis, everybody was singing Forest songs, and they had to tell them to pipe down a little bit. Was it like that this time around as well?
I mean, I don't think there were very many people on that plane that weren't going to the game. It was a Forest plane. I mean, I honestly cannot remember seeing anybody that wasn't going to the game. Maybe 2 women that were in when we were waiting to board, but they seemed to know what was going on, and they seemed to understand that it was football, and they weren't bothered by it. So yeah, there was a little bit of singing on the plane. I wouldn't say quite as much as on the way to Betis, but then I guess, second time round now, we're getting used to it, aren't we?
Yeah, those 2 ladies should have at least got into the spirit of things and started a few songs, shouldn't they?
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Right, onto the game. Let's talk about team selection first. Obviously, there were a few omissions. Murillo, Jesus, and was suspended, of course. Anderson was given a rest. So was Sells, so was Ndoye, and Callum Hudson-Odoi was also injured, which brought in McAtee, Kalimuendo, Morato, Yates, John and Sangari. So quite a few changes, and it showed, didn't it, Kate? I mean, I don't know how much. I don't think you saw too much, did you, Chelsea, of the game? But when you saw the lineup, Chelsea, in terms of those players and who actually took part in the team, there was kind of an inevitability about them being rusty, wasn't there? Particularly with the likes of McAtee and Kalimuendo and John.
Yeah, when you know that you haven't got, we all love our players, but when you haven't got your strongest team out, there is always a worry. And there is always, oh, this is a different shape, different form, different team. How are they going to cope? And I did think it was made abundantly clear of people not getting many minutes. McAtee, bless him, he was absolutely knackered. So was Calamundo. I know he went off. He'd got cramp, hadn't he, on one bit?
Yeah.
And you could just see that they are not match fit. And, you know, it's not their fault. They haven't had the minutes. Hopefully with time and hopefully more Europe games that we get them build up those minutes and they can keep, you know, building on that to then become almost like our second squad that we have got for Europe, obviously, and with the Premier League. I wasn't mad about it. I totally understand that, like, Anderson needs a rest. It's been long lately. It's been very long, and I know we're not even in December yet, but it has been quite a long season so far. But, you know, overall, I think we played okay. I don't think we were the most brilliant that I've seen Forest play, but I don't think that we were the worst either. So, yeah, overall, I think it was quite a good result for us where we are at the moment as a team.
Well, let's talk about the result then. Obviously, is it a point gained, Chelsea, or is it 2 points lost, do you feel? Because I've got my thoughts on the matter and just curious to know what you guys think.
I do think it is a point gained. I think if we had been playing better, then I feel like it would have been 2 points lost. But I feel like where we are at the moment, I did feel very much on the highlights that I did see in the half an hour that I did see, I do feel like Dyche has almost started to strip back all of the awful work that Ange did to our players. I feel like he stripped that back and we're now settling into the basics and the foundations, and that's how I felt watching what I did of our game. So I do feel like it is a point gained from where we have been and from where we are right now.
Yeah, for me, I was looking at how dominant Forest were for pretty much the whole game, considering they had Yates had a header cleared off the line, you had the penalty miss, you had McAtee nearly scored prior to that, and I literally jumped out my seat because I thought that was in. And you had Williams who came close with a half volley as well. Given all of those, for me, I'm looking at right now, my immediate reaction is that it was 2 points lost, because it's not often you can dominate a team like that in Europe, especially away, and you can't afford not to take advantage of that kind of scenario. So from that perspective, for me, it was a 2 points lost. But then in the whole scheme of things, in terms of qualification for the next phase, it's a point nearer to that. And we'll talk about the league table towards the end, but you have to look at it like a point away from home. So I think 10 or 11 points will probably get us into the next phase, whether that's the qualifying or hopefully we get even more points than that and we can sneak into the top 8. But that's just 1 point towards that target. So every point will help. And what were your thoughts, Kate? Point gained or 2 points lost?
So for me, the first half of the first half, when we came out and we were good, I think we were good. People may tell me I'm wrong about this. And again, standing there in the stadium, I do think you are looking through rose-tinted glasses a little bit, but it felt like we started really strong. It felt like we were creating decent chances from open play. Like you say, we were very dominant in possession, and I thought, okay, this is good, because I wasn't a huge fan of that team. And funnily enough, I'd sat on the plane and said to Des, I don't think he is going to make wholesale changes. There'll be some obvious few, but I wasn't expecting quite as many. But we started brightly. We should have scored. For me, the McAtee one was the big miss, because you said, you jumped out your seat. I was mid-celebrating before I realised that hadn't gone in. It just felt like an absolute certainty watching it. Funnily enough, the penalty didn't. Like, I was, please. And it took so long for him to take the strike. And there was just something about it that just, sometimes you get that feeling, like we all did when the corner was awarded and everybody went, yeah, well, they're going to score from this. It was similar. I just didn't want to say, but I just... Were
you confident that he was going to... When Gibbs White... Did you feel like he was confident in that moment, Kate?
No.
No. I didn't
I just
either.
thought
And I said to Dad, he's going to go bottom right. And I said, and he did. And I don't know whether it was that you could see that he was going there, that's why, but I just wanted your opinion from when you were there.
Yeah, I had a theory as well, in that we talked about it in the previous pod, that the last time Forest played Graz was in 1983-84, and Colin Walsh scored a penalty at that end to put Forest through, and Gibbs White went for the same corner, and I did wonder whether he probably didn't, but I did wonder whether he just wanted to repeat history and go for the same corner.
But at that point, even when Gibbs White missed that penalty, I was still in the believe camp. You know, I still thought it's okay because we're doing well here and they're not really bothering us. The thing that bothered me most about them scoring was John, rather than anything that they were producing themselves, you know? So I thought, no, this is okay. But then when half-time actually arrived, my overriding feeling was, oh dear, now we're in a bit of bother because we have had these chances and we haven't taken them. And it is absolutely classic Forest where they are now to come out in the second half and be a shadow. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that they were a shadow, but they certainly created a lot less. You know, Graz were in the game more. Again, nothing horrific, but they were in the game more. And I was aware and said they've not drawn. Because you said that, didn't you, in the last pod? You know, they've won or lost everything. So, you know, sort of which way is this going to go? And then in the end, I think there was a sense of relief that we hadn't lost it in that way when it finished. So as I was walking out, I wasn't necessarily feeling like it was 3 points lost. It did feel more like a point gained. But as we've said so many times, a game of two halves.
Yeah, I still went into half-time seeing how dominant they were in the first half, whether it's because Forest were playing well or whether it's because Graz were poor. It's probably a mixture of the two. And I was quite quietly confident that as long as they could repeat the sort of standards in the second half, that they were still going to win the game. So I wasn't overly concerned when Gibbs White missed the pen. Obviously, I think the fact that they weren't as dominant in the second half was, I think, mainly down to the fact that players started to tire, the likes of McAtee, Kalimuendo. I know Sangari hasn't played for a few games, and not that he would get tired because he's played before, but maybe a little bit of rustiness started to creep in. And we saw the McAtee and Kalimuendo did go down with cramp and subsequently left the field. So that kind of made me think that that's why the performance levels dipped. But also the bench, we didn't have too much depth on the bench. We had Murillo and Ndoye, who were the standout regular first teamers who both came on. And you had obviously Zach Abbott came on and did really well, and you had Bolly, who is a first team squad player, and Sells. But apart from that, there were only youngsters on the bench. So I was concerned with what options were going to be available off the bench. And thankfully, the players that did come on were okay. Murillo didn't have a lot to do because he essentially played with how many centre-halves at the end? So he didn't really have as much to do as normal, given the fact that defensive responsibilities were pretty much shared out between 4 centre-halves and 2 full-backs by the end. And Graz never really threatened, and that leads me nicely on to John. During the game, I nearly talked to Danny about Stern John. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's John Victor, isn't it? And I was concerned with how he was flapping at those 2 efforts, that pretty much the only 2 efforts that Graz had on goal all evening that I can recall. One was parried out, and I muttered out loud an expletive because I thought that's going to go in, and it did. And thankfully, VAR rescued us on that occasion. And then he nearly did it again in the first half, and thankfully that wasn't converted. So I was a little bit concerned around him. Had it been a better team who would have perhaps had more pressure, more chances, then it could have been a different story. Thankfully, he didn't really have anything to do in the second half that I recall. But what were the thoughts in the stands, Kate? Were they kind of a little bit worried about John and his performance, or did it kind of go unnoticed given the fact he didn't really have a huge amount to do overall?
I mean, the S word was mentioned a few times, and by that
Silly.
No, I mean,
That's the one.
um, that was mentioned a few times about him being in goal. And isn't it weird? Because I don't think very many people were massively comfortable with him being there, or the performance in general. And yet we did get a clean sheet. More by luck than judgment, maybe, but he's goalkeeper with a clean sheet. So I guess we have to give him some credit for that. But I would rather not see him again. Is it okay to say that?
It is, yeah. You're not the only one. I'm in that camp as well. I'm getting the sense he's another Carlos Miguel. So, and that one didn't work out. And I'm not sure he deserves the credit for a clean sheet because, Kate, to be honest, because he didn't have much to do, did he? Apart from those 2 shots, it was the defence that kept them out. Basically, do you know what I mean?
You say Miguel, I've got Matt Turner flashbacks going through my head when I was watching that. I was like, no, not another one, not another one.
Do we need to rate this podcast 18 then if you're talking about Matt Turner? Because it is a bit of a horror show when we talk about him, isn't it? Anyway, enough of the Halloween theme. So a point it was, and that we won't talk about it too much, but there was a little bit of an incident at the end, Kate, wasn't there, with regards to some people being unsavoury with their pints of beer or whatever it was. So thankfully, it didn't seem to escalate outside of the ground from what I can recall. Did it calm down quite quickly as soon as it started? Or
I witnessed sort of the very beginning of it. Again, it was quite a few rows in front of us, but I could see it. And it was some, I mean, I say lads, they weren't lads. They, they should know better. They had particularly frothy beer. Now, whether they'd done that by shaking it around, I don't know. And they were kind of flicking the froth off the top of the beer, but down onto the people below them. And that's what I could see them doing. And I just thought, oh, for goodness sakes. And then beyond that, I only know what I've read of what happened because it was near the end of the game and I didn't see anything else. And, like I say, there was no hold back. So we were pretty sharpish out there. So it was really disappointing for me to read that when I got back to the boxing gym.
You ought to knock 10 bells out of them, I think.
Yeah, because I'd had such a good experience and it's just a shame to think that some of our fans, had behaved in that way. But no, I don't believe it went outside the ground. No.
Did you get kept behind like Betis after the game? It seems as though they were perhaps a little bit more relaxed overall. Were you able to leave at the same time as the home fans and perhaps mingle with them a little bit afterwards, or was that segregation still there?
So no, there was no holdback. It was quite smart in the way that they did it, in that you came out of the away end and there were people. The announcement was coming over the tannoy to say there are buses laid on to take you back into the town near where our zone was. So everybody just got on the buses because why wouldn't you? They were free and they were taking you where you needed to go. So in some respects, that was a very clever way to manage us, but also a very effective one and very, very welcome. Straight on the bus, and then obviously everybody singing on the bus and just talking about the game, and big forest bus all the way back into town. And then everybody either went back to their rooms or onto the local bars. And so no hold back, straight out the ground. I think it was great.
I know Mollo usually does Mollo's moment, but we still have to do it, don't we? So even though he's not here. So do you want to give a Mollo's moment, Kate? Can you think of one? Putting you on the spot a little bit, but can you think of one moment that stands out above everything else?
Oh, gosh. Do you know what? Yes, I can. Okay. So the song, which I know, again, has gone on social media and in some respects probably isn't the most clever chant that they've ever come up with, but it's Sean Dyche, Ian Wone and Stevie Stone. Got no hair, we don't care, we're off to Istanbul. And we just sang that relentlessly, like, I don't know, just over and over and over and over and over and over. And it was brilliant. Every single Forest fan that was in that ground was singing that song all at the same time, just over and over and over again. And you know what? We loved it. And it's
brilliant.
A little touch of nostalgia in there, but also, we live in hope, don't we? We live in hope. We're there living our best lives in Austria and we're off to Istanbul. So yeah, that's going to be my moment when we just sang and sang and sang and sang that song.
And you definitely hear that at the start of the game, definitely, because the Stevie Stone chant I grew up singing a lot of, and I recognised it, and obviously couldn't make out the words for obviously with Sean Dyche and Ian Woan being brought into the equation. I couldn't make that out on TV because you don't naturally think that that's what they're singing about.
Yep.
You just think they're singing about Stevie Stone. So I did wonder why they kept singing about Stevie Stone. I thought, was he out the dugout a lot or something? But obviously seeing the clips on social media, you can see that, in fact, none of them have much hair now, do they? So it could apply to all of them. But it's a shame the final's not in Rome, because then you have Stevie Stone, we're off to Rome kind of thing.
It would rhyme better.
It would rhyme, yeah.
But we embraced it. We shall sing it again.
Yeah. So where does that leave Forest in the league table then? Well, they're currently in third place, with 24th being the cut-off point for the playoff qualifiers. So they're in it. There are obviously, given the fact there are only 4 games played, there are a bunch of teams around them on 4, 5 or 6 points. So a couple of wins would easily see them shoot up the table. The good news is their next 2 games are against Malmo at the end of the month and Utrecht shortly after that in December. Both teams are winless and both teams are second and third out of 36. So if ever there was an opportunity to find them a way to creep up the table to solidify at least a qualifying spot, the next 2 games are going to be key, because the 2 games they've got to finish with are Braga, is it, Kate, you're off to in Portugal? Yep. They're currently 5th. They've won 3, lost 1. I think that they lost this week, actually. And then the team from Hungary, whose name I'm not going to pronounce, they're unbeaten. They've played 4, won 3, drawn 1. And they currently sit 3rd. So it's really imperative they get a couple of wins in their next 2 games, because if they don't, then they're going to find it difficult to qualify, I think. But they're more than capable. Thankfully, the Malmo game is at home. Malmo themselves have only scored 2 and they've let in 7. So, and they've, like I said, they've won none, drawn 1, lost 3. So that says to me, if Forest play to their potential, they should win that game at home. And then the Utrecht game, similar record, they've only scored 1 out of their 4, conceded 5. So again, if Forest play to their potential, they should win that. Even Graz are above those teams. And I thought Graz were ordinary, to say the least. So 6 points out of the next 2 games is a minimum requirement, I think.
Okay,
for sure.
Yep.
Okay, any final thoughts before we do, or should we do man of the match, Chelsea?
Oh, yeah, let's go man of the match.
Go on.
I would have to say that my man of the match has to be Neco Williams for me. When you look at who he was as a player a couple of seasons ago to the player that he is now, he's worked his absolute backside off. He has just been consistent. I'm not even just talking about in this game. He just gives it his all. How he holds that line. He unnerves players. He's very clever in when he needs to go down, when he doesn't. And I just think he was absolutely superb. And it was one of them ones, I didn't look out for him. But when he did something, I spotted him and just kept watching him. You know, when you just focus in on a player and you're just constantly seeing where he is, what he's doing. And I thought he was superb.
Yeah, agree. I think he was almost like a key cog in Forest going forwards. Yesterday, I think, because Sturm Graz seemed to pack the middle quite a lot, it left a lot of space on the flanks, and anything good that was happening for Forest going forward seemed to go through him. And obviously he won the penalty as well. So Williams gets my man of the match as well, Chelsea. And I know where you're going to go, Kate, I suspect. Are you going to make it a hat-trick, or are you going to choose somebody else?
John Victor.
Yeah.
No.
Stern John even. Even Stern John probably played better than John Victor.
We've talked about cramp. We've talked about fitness. We've talked about form. We've talked about fundamentals and effort. What that team need is to bottle Neco Williams, and everybody has a shot of Neco before they go on that pitch. Because that man this season has just been brilliant. He's never fallen below, 7, 8 out of 10, no matter what game. we're not resting Neco, are we? No. And we don't need to, because he's like the Duracell bunny. He is up and down that pitch. He is like lightning. And he was fantastic yesterday. I happily pay the money, get on a plane and go to Austria to see that man play for my team. So absolutely Neco Williams, man of the match for me.
Here's a thought. Shall we call this week's pod a shot of Neco?
Yeah, do it.
If you like, Simon, if you like.
Yeah. Right, okay, good stuff. So he gets 3 more votes for man of the match. So let's move on, shall we, to Leeds. So hopefully this Sunday we'll see the return of Murillo, Jesus, Anderson, Sells, you would expect, maybe Dan and Doy as well. So it's already, you bring those 5 players in, already makes the team a lot stronger and a lot better, doesn't it? Callum Hudson-Odoi, we're not sure yet. Obviously, he's got a bit of a knock. Same with Chris Wood. Seems to be on the periphery of coming back, but we're not sure. But the return of those 5, doesn't it, Chelsea, makes the team have a different complexion on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does it, and it is that thing of putting your best team out there. I always feel like our worry at the moment is who's going to score goals. That's my thing. It's all good about having our back 4 as superb as you like, but all we're going to get is a draw with that. You know, and that's the thing. And we need someone scoring goals. And it is, obviously, we are a bit unsure about Wood. Jesus, I feel like he just needs to be unleashed. We all know that we have got goal scorers, whether it's in the midfield, whether it's even at the back with corners. We know that. But again, it's the confidence. That's how I feel. And we were stripped of it. And I do feel like it is slowly coming back. But God, for me, this game, we need a win. We really do. And I just want every player on that pitch on Sunday just to go out and just show just what they're made of. Just unleash yourself. Just do it. Just go for it. If you don't shoot, you don't score. That's the thing. Just do whatever you can and just play your heart out on that pitch. That's what I feel like we need out of Sunday's game. And I really, really hope, God, do I hope, that we all get a good result. And on Monday, when we are doing our podcast, that we are all revelling in it. That is what I hope.
Hopefully. The good news is, Kate, that if those aforementioned players all come back, then they're going to be fresh. And don't forget, you've got the likes of Hutchinson and Jer Cunha to potentially be in the squad as well. So they can't use the excuse that they're tired, like perhaps they may have had a bit of a hangover for Bournemouth. But they haven't got that excuse this week, have they? They're back at home. They haven't got another away trip to deal with either, which is great. So they've got no excuses, I think, for this weekend. And is it a must-win, would you say? Every game's a must-win, but given the context of the league positions of Forest and Leeds, they need to start getting wins, don't they, soon? And this seems like a really good starting point for that.
Yeah, and I guess we're down to mathematically, no, it is not a must-win. In every other way, it absolutely is, because we need to show now that we have the quality. Stay up. This is what people are saying. You'll be all right. You won't go down because you've got X, Y, Z, because you've got this quality, because you know, you've got a good squad. You've got a decent manager now. You're not going to go down. Da, 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 da. Now they need to show us that, because we know it, we see it, we hope for it, but they don't always bring it. And on Sunday, that is what they need to do. They need to do it for us, themselves, and for Sean Dyche, actually, because it makes a big difference to how you rate his start as our manager. And actually, as Chelsea's already said, I think he's doing great work. I think he's doing difficult work, but I think in general, it's going well, and we can see what he's doing. So yes, Sunday is the day that we get 3 points and everybody breathes a bit of a sigh of relief. And I know it won't take us out of relegation. We can't get out of relegation on Sunday, but it sends us into that international break with 3 games and 5 points. And that is not relegation form. So, and I know one of those is in Europe, but 3 games, 5 points is not relegation form. So for me, yeah, I am really looking forward to it. absolutely bricking it. But we're all saying all this stuff and then they're not going to do it, but they should do it. I think they will. I really do think they will. Yeah, as long as Leeds don't undo us with a set piece.
BBC Sport have just literally sent out, I've got a notification on my phone, and they've quoted Sean Dyche saying, scoring a work in progress and return of injured players will be key, with the headline to that, Forest seek killer edge. And that is absolutely what they lacked in Austria, wasn't it? That killer edge. Obviously, Callum Mwendo did his best on his first full start, but he was rusty, wasn't he? And they certainly missed the likes of Wood and Jesus up front. Hopefully the return of those guys is going to be key. So that leads me nicely to your prediction, Chelsea. Forest going to win. What have you put for the podcast prediction league this week, by the way? I've put a win. Have you guys, Chelsea?
I've put a win. And the predictions that I do with my family as well, I've put a 2-1 Forest win as well. So I'm going to have to be consistent and go with that as well. I'm a bit like Kate. I am so scared for the game on Sunday. I just am. Everyone was scared of us last season, and we need that back. I don't want people going, oh yeah, well we've got Forest on Sunday or we've got Forest on Saturday. That's an easy game. I don't want that. That's not who we are. So we need to be that threat again. So 2-1.
So keep an eye out for me, Chelsea, because if Forest score down the Trent end, I'll be on the front row of the Trent end, lower halfway between the goal and the Peter Taylor stand. So I'll give you a wave, Kate, as well, if I can. But yeah, keep an eye out, because if Forest score and run down that way, you might see me in the background, and Danny as well. But
I'll be like, I know who that is.
Yeah. Right, Kate, prediction from you, please. Now, the important thing is, what have you done for the podcast prediction league? Because you need to say Forest are going to lose, don't you? So that we can win.
I know, but then I went for a loss and we got a draw with Man U, didn't I? I switched it up and it kind of half worked. Yeah, okay. So I have thought about this, and I am going to go for 2-0. That is what I'm going to go for. I reckon if John Victor can get a clean sheet, then come on, Sales.
I thought you were going to say for John Victor to be in goal, and I was like, no, Kate. No.
So I'm saying clean sheet for Sales. I've heard a lot of people say 1-0. We just need the win. I am going for 2-0 win.
If John Victor did play in goal and Forest win, it would be a John Victory, wouldn't it?
There it is.
So I'm also going for a Forest win. I was thinking of 2-0, but I'm going to go for 2-1. I think Forest will score a couple of goals. Leeds will get a late consolation, and then it will be back to the Wolves' job for injury time. So with typical Forest. So I'm going for Forest win 2-1 as well. Right. Any final thoughts, Chelsea, before we go?
No, I would just like to say, as you can see, well, our listeners can't see, that I am modelling, because that's what I am now. I've got to say that I've got to add a model on my CV. I am wearing the lovely Garibaldi Girls top that I helped design. They are on sale now, so if you go onto the Tricky Tees, if you go on their Instagram and on their website, follow that link on there, you will see my lovely face on there modelling the top, and then you can go and click and buy yours.
Yeah, we'll put a picture of you out on social media if you don't mind, Chelsea. I know it's gone out on Instagram, but if you're happy for it to go out on X as well, we shall do that.
Of course you can.
And TikTok as well now, Kate. We've got a TikTok account which you kindly set up for us. We put it on there as well.
We can do. I took my Garibaldi Girls top to Austria with me. I travelled in it. I didn't wear it to the game. I did put this one on for the game. But yeah, I took that with me, and it arrived just before the Manchester United game, within 20 minutes before I was leaving to go to the ground. So I did a quick change and wore it to that. So it's already lucky. Get your lucky Garibaldi Girls t-shirts and raise some money for Women's Aid.
So what you're saying, Kate, you wore that shirt for the game and you've literally come straight home and you haven't changed.
That is exactly.
Oh, I wonder what that smell was.
Yes.
That is the smell of Forest in Europe.
Right, on that nice, smelly moment, we shall bid you a farewell and we'll talk to you again on Monday. Well, hopefully we'll be all talking about a victory over Leeds. So thanks again for listening and bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.